Hi, everyone. Welcome to No Movies in Hell. I'm Chris Geiger.
I'm LaClaw Scott. For this episode, we are going to review Lamb, an A24 film, a very A24 film.
And this film is Icelandic. And I haven't seen a lot of Icelandic movies. I did see Rams a few years ago on a plane, and I liked it. Have you seen a lot
I
of?
actually saw Rams and Iceland at like a movie theater. What we try to do is go to the movies when we're traveling, and that just happened to be the film that was showing in Icelandic movie theater with English subtitles. And actually, I liked it a lot.
I did too. I was surprised. I don't like a lot of movies that are really slow paced, and I refer to them as Terrence Malick movies. uh, But I like this. I liked Rams. We should do Rams one.
Yeah,
We should have done this
actually,
in
we
a
should. I
combo.
think it was at the time their official entry into, gosh, the Oscars or something.
Okay. Did it win or did it get nominated for anything?
I think it may have been nominated as an international selection. I don't believe it won.
Hmm. I did not see the ending coming for Rams, but I really liked it, and I feel like that's the same with Lamb.
Yeah, I just, I don't know. Lamb just brings a smile to my face because of all the, like, I guess the marketing has been pretty kept quiet in terms of what to expect, level setting expectations. But then watching the film was just a whole different experience. And it just made me laugh every single time certain things happen.
All right, so this is our review of Lamb, and we both scored it pretty high, really, for what seemed like a relatively low budget, quiet film. I mean, it's still backed by A24, so of course it has studio behind it, but it wasn't really advertised that much.
Mhm.
And especially now when I feel like a lot of movies that have waited 2 years to come out, for it to come out in this time period, it's going to get sort of shoved to the side a little bit. Got James Bond movie coming out and like all of these like big blockbusters that people have been waiting for 2 years, and then you have this one. It surprised me how much I liked it.
Yeah, I literally went in with no expectation. I know that you had told me that you went to go see it and you're like, okay, you should see it. And it's like, it's on my radar, but almost like, yeah, there's no rush because I'm seeing a film every other day at this frequency. When Alamo in Manhattan opened, thought that it would be the perfect opportunity to see the film. I absolutely loved it. I loved all aspects of it. I felt like it took you on a ride that it was just so, it was almost a little organic, and then it was inorganic in certain spots, and I don't want to spoil it. I highly recommended it to friends and family, under the context being it's an A24 film, it has a story, and there are elements of Iceland. So all my friends who've gone to Iceland, it's like, oh, you're gonna like this movie.
I thought the acting was really good, and I hadn't seen anyone before except for Numi. I
Yes.
think the interesting thing was this was built as a horror movie. The horror part of it never really manifested to the degree that I thought it would. Like at
Mhm.
every turn, I thought, oh, this is where it's gonna take this like horrific. Hopefully, this doesn't spoil it for anyone, but every time like someone would show up at the house, I thought, oh, this is where it goes bad. Like they're gonna have to try to keep this a secret, and so they're gonna have to get rid of people who encounter them along the way. But it never really did that. The horror part for me was like the suspense. It keeps you on the edge of your seat, like what?
I guess there is a part where the brother shows up, and it's kind of like, oh, it's an outsider outside of the bubble. I wonder how the response will be. And like him, checking in with them to be like, this isn't right. But then initial perception and then your feelings, it takes you on a journey. I laughed a lot. The special effects, I thought they were great. However, it was a little, it made you laugh every single time certain things happened, and you try to like empathize and have these feelings for these characters. And I thought at the end of the film, when it started to wrap up, that's when it was just kind of, you're taking a step back and you're like, oh, okay, you're out of this element. And then you almost want to continue on this journey, but it just, it doesn't abruptly stop, but like there's a lot of things to kind of think and manifest. And I feel like I walked away with Nate, and I just really sat and like he did a ton of research, and I kind of were constantly asking each other questions like, you saw what I saw, right? Like, how do you think it's going to end? Like, what kind of led up to that? Like, did we get the signs? Did we know what was going on? I thought it was great.
Yeah, I feel like we've given a kind of overview for people who have not seen it, but if you don't want any spoilers, you should turn this off now, because I think we should talk about like how we felt like when things started to happen.
I agree. So this is a huge spoiler alert. We're going to dive deep into Ata.
When they first started, when the mother sheep gave birth and Ada came out, like clearly you knew something was wrong, but you didn't know what exactly it was because they didn't show it. And so at first I thought the mother sheep died. And so that's why they had to take this lamb into their home and bottle feed it and take care of it that way. So when you realize that it's a hybrid creature, right? Like that's when you realize, oh, this is taking a turn. And you kind of saw that in the trailer a little bit, where like they have the child with the lamb head, but in children's clothing, so it has the body of a person. But that's when you were like, oh. And then when the brother shows up, like you don't really know that he's the brother yet. So there's just the stranger who approaches the house, who is there. You don't know if he's there to do them harm or if he's really just kind of this desperate traveler. There's not a lot out in rural Iceland, and he's clearly not dressed to be out in the elements for long periods of time. He got dumped there.
Yeah, it looked like I thought he was like being robbed of his car. And I was just like, oh, that's weird.
Yes, I thought that too. And so I wasn't sure if he was gonna come and do them harm. And then when he takes Ada out, and they're asleep, like then I was like, oh, this is how it starts. Like this is where the carnage begins.
Yes, I thought the exact same thing. I was like, oh no, she's not coming back.
Yeah. And I think there was some foreshadowing, right? When the mother ends up killing the mother sheep. Like I thought, oh, like this is how far she's willing to go to protect Ada. Like, so everyone who comes to the house now, be on guard. You're not gonna tell anybody about Ada.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I felt like she wanted to come from a place of understanding, but yes, that Ada's mom was in the way. But then for the brother, it was like, accept that this is the reality. Like we're taking care of a lamb hybrid. We're figuring out, she's our child now, and you need to accept this. Then it was like that trepidation in stepping back and what are you guys doing? Why are you treating this thing like your child? And then there's adoption. And then, you start to think about, okay, well, if they're expanding your universe in terms of him, if he goes back out into the real world to start socializing essentially what his experience has been thus far, then it becomes, you try to normalize it, but there was also the lingering of the dog, right? The disappearance of the dog, trying to figure out, okay, so what led to that? Like, who would harm a dog? And also for me, there are little to no shootings in Iceland. Like there's none there. I think there was exactly one. Guns, and thinking about that, like who would they harm? It is almost like it's bad, really bad news when it's when a gun is involved. And usually for me, I was like, oh yeah, like a person is not going to be killed. It's Iceland. It's probably going to be like game or something like that. And then the surprising twist, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is really interesting. As it starts to relate to the folklore of Iceland and things that you see kind of in passing with, Icelandic movies. I think of the Will Ferrell movie that came out last year.
Eurovision?
Yes.
With Rachel McAdams?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think
And
I
kind of
think it
like
was Eurovision.
fairies and things like that. And you almost forget, like, that's kind of part of the culture.
Definitely it is. And I think it's funny that that's how that movie ended. Although I was talking to another friend who felt like it was a terrible ending and that they just sort of didn't know how to end it. So they thought, well, we'll just do this. And
Oh, I don't think that they put a bow on it for sure. It was like the intent was this.
yeah, I really liked it. I hope a lot of people go see it. I hope we get more movies from Iceland. It's the kind of horror that I like, right? It's not the slasher horror. It's the kind of like, what's gonna happen next horror? And like
Yes,
this thing is
suspenseful.
not right, but how would someone react if this were to happen to them? You're just there when this calf is born and it's half human. And what do you do with that? Like you can't just let it be outside like a regular sheep.
Yeah. And
So
also the movements too. So the movements were just like, it's just hilarious. Yeah, it's just like a child, except for you're looking at a lamb and how they're kind of functioning and also internalizing, who they are. There's one point in the movie where she looks in a mirror and sees herself, and then like I forgot if it was in the scene where it was like the barn, but she's like realizing that she doesn't look like her mom or dad, and maybe internalizing that she is othered, but they accept her and they love her.
well, there's also, isn't there a scene where she looks at this picture? It's a photograph of like sheep being herded,
Mm-hmm.
and she like realizes, oh, like that's
Yeah,
yeah, like that I
yeah,
I am a herd animal. I'm a pack animal.
yeah, yeah.
Or I
And
feel
going to the barn too, and just looking and seeing like all of them in there. And then it kind of like the ending kind of just solidifies the action that the mom was trying to take, like we're trying to get you somewhere.
right, right. But clearly, has language functionality, right? Like understands what people are saying to her, like follows directions, like makes sounds appropriately, right? Like in response to being
Mhm.
told, asked questions, she doesn't form words, but she makes sounds, which at one point the dad answers a question that it seems like he hears her ask, but she doesn't really say it. And
Mhm.
I didn't understand it to be a full sentence. I thought it was great. We scored this one really high, both of us.
Yeah, we sure did.
So it was a good movie week, I think, because we're going to look at some others in our next couple of episodes that we've seen recently, and those are pretty good too. Do we have anything to plug in this?
Working on the POAPs, so we're going to get those up and running for you. But to make sure you can collect the first one. We'll have the next series coming out.
So, along the sort of non traditional horror line of thinking, I have a friend who has non traditional horror movie. It's sort of a romantic comedy horror movie, with an unconventional twist done on a shoestring, but I like the story a lot. And it's called A Ghost Waits, and it's streaming now on Hulu and Amazon. And I'm sorry, it's not, I don't know if it's streaming on Hulu. It's streaming on Amazon. That's how I saw it. It's also streaming on Apple. So if you get a chance, it won a couple awards at the Fright Fest Glasgow. And I believe it won a couple other awards at another festival that I can't remember off the top of my head, but definitely plugging my friend's movie, A Ghost Waits. Adam Stovall is the writer director. I think he also appears in a couple scenes. Go see that if you have a chance.
That's
All right.
awesome.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.